Alright, here we go. It's harvest time. What you're looking at right now is my Wheelbarrel Harvester that I designed. Actually, what I did, I gathered a bunch of ideas from YouTube and other people's designs, and I thought, well, instead of having all the casings falling down onto a table and then to clean it up, why not just have it all just fall into a wheelbarrow? What I did is I use a 2-gallon bucket, and I turn around and use a 1/4 inch mesh. I'm going to make another one identical to this, so that I want to have an 1/8 inch for finer shedding later on. And this one here, the way I designed it, if you look right here, it just slides right up, and I can take this back off, so I'll have interchangeable. I only have to have one frame. And if you notice right here, I have a little cutout there and one adjacent on the bottom, and that's for the handle. I know some people would have to load it up, go to the other side, and then turn it. I thought, well, instead of going back and forth, why not be able to do it from the same side? So this was my remedy on that, and right here is the handle. Give you a little side view of it. And what it is a PVC pipe on a dowel. That way it turns freely. And then I got some little screws sticking out, one on each side, and they'll go right in that groove after I put a handful of compost in there, and I can lock and quarter turn it, and then that way it stays in there secure. This is all just made with some scrap lumber. And on this side here, I designed a chute. Same principle with the screws that you see right here. So this way I can take it off for, it's a little hard to do one-handed. As you can notice, it comes right off, and it just snaps right back on for whenever I need to do some harvesting. That'll help guide it into a barrel. This is day 17. I wasn't planning on harvesting yet, but I probably could run it a little bit longer. If you look at the grounds over here, the castings, I don't know if you can see it or not, still but not quite there. It's pretty good though, but I'm finding that my food tray, my feeding tray was full, so I want to start another feeding tray, and in order to do that I needed to free one up. So this is a little less than 3 weeks to harvest, and as I get a little more patience, then I'm sure I can slow it down to one harvest every 3 weeks. Okay, this is how this is working. I should be going the other direction. Just trying to figure it out, first time using it. And the chute seems to be working good. Yep, a couple of them missing, not many. Everybody's seen a harvester before. I just wanted to show this style. And as you can see, move out of this light there. What's not finished is down in there. And right there is what I'm looking at so far. It's pretty good little worm castings right here. And that was just for a couple of scoops. Still have 2.5 gallons left in here. I hit about 3 gallons total, and before I harvested this out of the bottom processing tray, I would say there's another cup of worm castings that was in there. So as you can see, this is, I shouldn't have no problems from here on out continuing on harvesting worm castings every 3 weeks with the Worm Factory 360. I'd like to summarize now on my project that I have for 3-week harvesting. Before I begin, I want to correct an error I had on my last videotape. I said it was day 17 when I was harvesting. It was actually day 14. It was a week earlier than I had planned. Anxiety kicked in, I guess, and anxiousness. And I harvested a little earlier than I had planned. A couple reasons. One, I needed them for the garden on the outside. And, you know, I've never done it before, so I was anxious to see how it was going to come out and test out my new screening method. So it was day 14, not 17, I believe I had in the tape. I think 3 weeks would have been better. I still had a little bit left in there that hadn't made it, but you figure that was only 3 weeks with worms in the bed, or 2 weeks. So one more week I would have definitely had a lot more castings. The final result is, since in the 2 weeks I had been running the system here, had about 2.5, almost 3 cups of straight worm castings collected out of the collection tray down here in the bottom. And then when I actually did the screening, I got about 1.5 gallons of good quality vermicompost. It's a little wet. I should have waited to dry it out a bit more before I screened it, but rain was in the forecast, and that was the excuse I was using, so I was in a hurry to go ahead and get screened for the first time and actually test out the system. Lessons learned: if I would have done this again and started from scratch again tomorrow, or advise someone else to do it, that worm, initial worm bedding that I talked about with the compost mix works really well. The worms were happy. After I screened, I went through my screening. After everything was done, I found over 35 eggs in the worm sacks, and went ahead and reintroduced those back into the bin. And I had probably a good pound, close to it, of worms still in that bottom bin. And so the misconception that you can't do multiple bins, I think I've already proven it wrong. Because I started off about 1.5 pounds at the most, maybe 1.25 pounds in the bottom bin when I first started off. With about 18 full adults found in two different inspections of the harvest tray, on the collection tray. I think that was a pretty good ratio that's remained behind. And the rest of the trays, they didn't do some migration, and I had worms in all trays. Right now I got probably close to an even distribution in all the trays right now. Working really well. If, once again, if I was going to recommend to anybody else, I would recommend not to put a full tray of compost mix in there. I'd go down to about 1/2. It makes it a lot easier for the for when you're going to work on harvesting and separating your worms. When you shift everything to one side and introduce them to light, and they all dive down into your new feeding tray. It's hard to do when you have it full like that. So from here on out, I'm not going to let my bins go up as full. It works just fine as far as vermicomposting and getting castings, but it makes it a little harder on collection if you want to use that method to separate your worms. It's a very good method, though. I took half of it, put it in a wheelbarrow, used that technique. After a little while, turned around, moved all that back into the wheelbarrow, and took the load from the wheelbarrow, put it in there, and did that. And I had not even a dozen worms. And all of them were infants, babies, that made it through the screening. They all went down, so real easy on that. I want to thank everybody that contributes to YouTube. It's very informative. I learned a lot when I was preparing for this. And I want to thank the manufacturers of the Worm Factory 360. They were extremely helpful. Never had much of a delay at all in responding to my emails when I had a question about wanting to try this project. And I highly recommend the system. It works really well. So if you want to be able to collect castings about every 3 weeks, this method does work. And I have no problem that in another 2.5 weeks, come up to my next 3 week cycle, that bottom one's going to be full of castings. And I need them for my garden, and I'm sure you need them too. Well, I hope this was helpful. Happy worm casting.